Okay, welcome everybody to District 14's monthly 12 concepts workshop. My name is David and I'm an alcoholic. Would you please help me in opening this meeting with a moment of silence to do with as you wish, followed by the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Newcomers, just so we can welcome you, is anybody here in their first 30 days of sobriety tonight? Just like to welcome you by first name. Glad everybody's here and participating tonight. I don't know if I've got it written into the format, but just so everybody's aware, this is not a regular meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is a workshop on a specific topic called Concept 4. So if you came in looking for an AA meeting, you're welcome to be here, but we're not going to have an AA meeting. Ebony, would you please read the preamble?
Sure will. Hey, y'all, I'm an alcoholic. My name is Ebony. The AA Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Thanks for letting me read.
Thank you, Ebony. Scott, can you see that Declaration of Unity? Would you mind reading that, please?
Hi, I'm Scott. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey,
A declaration of unity. This we owe to AA's future, to place our common welfare first, to keep our fellowship united. For an AA united depends our lives and the lives of those to come.
Thank you. Hey, Larry, are you on? Are you still on? If you could read AA's legacy of service, please.
Hey, Larry, alcoholic.
Larry.
This is AA's legacy of service. Our 12th step, carrying the message, is the basic service that the AA fellowship gives. This is our principal aim and the main reason for our existence. Therefore, AA is more than a set of principles. It is a society of alcoholics in action. We must carry the message, else we ourselves can wither and those who haven't been given the truth may die. Hence, an AA service is anything, whatever that helps us to reach a fellow sufferer, ranging all the way from the 12th step itself to a 10-cent phone call and a cup of coffee, and to AA's General Service Office for national and international action. The sum total of all these services is our third legacy of service. Services include meeting places, hospital cooperation, and intergroup offices. They mean pamphlets, books, and good publicity of almost every description. They call for committees, delegates, trustees, and conferences. And, not to be forgotten, they need voluntary money contributions from within the fellowships. Thanks for letting me read.
Thank you so much. And so here we are on the fourth Wednesday of every month in 2021. District 14 is going to have this workshop through the concepts corresponding with the month. We're in the fourth month, so tonight we'll do concept 4, and on the fourth Wednesday of May we'll do concept 5. And so we're going to have our speaker present their experience, strength, and hope on concept 4 for however long she likes. I have 30 to 40 minutes written down. Then we'll take a quick break after she's done, and we'll take announcements, Path 7 Tradition Basket, etc. And then we'll open up for questions and answers. So you'll see a participant called questions in the chat. That's really Larry. But please, we don't have any questions in the can or sitting aside. While Michaelene is sharing, if something occurs to you that you want to know more about, feel free to just chat it to Larry, and we'll accumulate the questions. And after the break, then we'll come back and interview Michaelene. Okay, does that make sense? Please send your questions to the user questions. And I'm just so excited to have Michaelene here tonight. She's a past delegate of Virginia, and she's just my kind of AA. I'd listen to her read the phone book. I don't say that about everybody. So I don't want to take up another minute of her time. Michaelene, thank you so much for coming to share with us tonight. Help me welcome Michaelene. I hit the ask. Yeah, there you go.
Unmute. Okay.
Atta girl.
When I'm talking, I hide my self-view, so I had no idea. Hi, everybody. I'm Michaelene, and I am an alcoholic.
Hi, Michaelene.
Thank you very much for asking me to come and do this. The concepts are just, I love them, and have had ample opportunity to study them and do workshops and just like with the big book and the 12 and 12, I keep learning more stuff every time I go through them. So let me start with my sobriety date is May 1st of 1984. So if I don't drink and I don't die for 2 more days, I will be 37. And I know nobody is more shocked about that than me. And my home group is the Mid-Peninsula group here in Gloucester. We're the oldest group in Gloucester. We just turned 51 years old in December. And the group is very strong on steps and strong on tradition. So if you're ever, we're not quite back to brick and mortar yet, but we're talking about it. And I think we're going to do that very soon. But if you're ever in Gloucester on a Tuesday night and want something to do, we'll find you something. So concept 4 is the right of participation. And in the first 3 concepts, the first one we say the groups decide what happens in Alcoholics Anonymous, and there's a bajillion groups. Then the second one says, because there's so many people and we stand a 0 chance of getting a representative or getting all of them together at any given time, you can elect somebody to represent you. So if you belong to a home group, you have a GSR. If you belong to a district, you have a DCM. They represent the district. In the Virginia area, we have our delegate right now, the sitting delegate is Sherry Wells. And she has just returned. She didn't go anywhere. She just Zoomed. Hopefully next year she actually gets to go to New York because it's quite an experience. But Sherry represents the voice of all of Virginia. And so then in concept 3, I'm sure Chris explained to you very well how that right of decision thing works, where, if you need to, if you're in a situation where you receive more information and you're pretty sure your group would have changed their mind or changed their thinking or changed their vote, then you can change your vote as a representative of that group. Well, in concept 4, it says we have a right of participation. And what that means is any person, anybody who says they're a member of Alcoholics Anonymous has a right to participate. And that's at every level. So it doesn't matter if you're 15 minutes sober or if you're 50 years sober, you have a right to participate. And I will quantify that by saying you have an equal right to participate. So in your, we just did I just helped a home group do an inventory, and part of outlining the parameters of how to do that inventory, it's like, it doesn't matter how much time you have. If this is your home group, you are invited to participate. So if you're in a home group and you're having a home group meeting and discussing business or discussing conference concerns or discussing what's going on in your district, you have an equal right to speak up, speak your mind, ask questions, and actually participate in that discussion. And somebody who has more time can't say, you don't know what you're talking about because you haven't been around long enough. They don't get that right. Likewise, Sherry represents the Virginia area, but she works for us. She can't walk into an assembly and say, well, I'm your delegate and I say it has to be this way. Doesn't work that way. We tell her what to do. We, the members, get to tell her what we want the Virginia area to be. So what it says on page 16 of the service manual, the concept part, kind of almost the middle of the page, but not quite. At the end of the second full paragraph, it says all can vote and therefore all can truly participate. If you are a member of a home group, you have a right to vote on that. If you're a member of the Virginia area, you have a right to vote on that. Even if you're not a GSR, even if you're not a voting member of the Virginia area, you can participate in the discussion. And even at the conference level, there are some of the staff members who are allowed to vote at the conference, in part to give it some balance away from just being alcoholics. That's why we have, you know, Class A and Class B trustees. The oh gosh, I just drew a blank. Class Bs are the boozers. Class Bs are the boozers. But we have Class A trustees that are non-alcoholics that bring a different perspective, a balance to our conference, and they are allowed to vote. So we give equal representation to the job that you have, even though staff members aren't representing an area or a district or anything like that. Certain staff members, they wouldn't have a conference if those staff members didn't participate, and therefore they are allowed to participate in the conference. So when the time comes to ballot, there are no superiors, no inferiors, and no advisors. So nobody can say, hey, you have to vote this way because I said so. You have to vote this way because you don't know what you're doing and I do. So you got to vote the way I say. You don't got to vote the way anybody says. You vote your conscience. And the way that we vote our conscience in Alcoholics Anonymous is that we vote for what we think is best for AA as a whole. So here's an example that I use. Where y'all live and where I live, we're here on the water. Let's suppose that we decided that all AA groups should have a sailboat. I think that's a pretty cool idea. Let's go. But then we go, like, Sherry goes to the conference and there's people there from the mountains. And there's people there from the desert. And there's people there from way up in Canada where there's no water around at all. And they say, well, you know, sailboats aren't really going to cut it for us. So that would be one of those times when she could change her vote, because sailboats are just not what's best for AA as a whole. But she can't go there and say, well, you have to vote for sailboats because Virginia said so. No, there are no superiors. There are no inferiors. You're only 15 minutes sober. You don't know what you're talking about. You can't vote. I'll tell you what, especially when we're doing inventories, when we're doing business discussions, sometimes it's the new people who have some of the best ideas because they're not stuck, in what my buddy Joe used to refer to as old timers disease, which is hardening of the attitudes. We need the fresh input of people who have not been around Alcoholics Anonymous forever and a day if it weren't for young people, would we have been able to pull off all this Zoom stuff? I didn't even know what Zoom was unless I was Zooming to the grocery store for something. I didn't know about Zoom. So we need young people to bring some of these fresh ideas to us. And that's why there's no inferiors. And no advisors. We can't have, or we shouldn't have people saying, well, you have to vote this way because I know what's best for the group. I know what's best for the area. So I just think you need to do this. Sorry. No, don't gotta. Don't gotta. I have a right of participation and I can speak my mind however I need to do that. So one of the ways that this came about was during the development of the General Service Office, we had people who had tons of responsibility, but they didn't really have any voice. We had our co-founders, Bill and Bob, and they pretty much had all the voice. And then we had all these people that were actually doing the work at the new General Service Office, that they didn't have any representation. And I love the fact that Bill says a kind of schizophrenia happened because people don't like being left out. People don't like feeling like they're inferior to others. When I walk into a room of Alcoholics Anonymous, you can't ask me about my bank account. You can't ask me if I'm a member of the right clubs or the yacht club or how much I have in my bank account or anything else. The only question you can ask me is, do you want to get sober? I asked one night, there was a man there that I knew from work, and he gave a wrong name, different name. I won't say wrong. He gave a different name. And so I went to the lady who had helped me walk through the door, and I said, that's not his name. And she said, what does it matter? He knows he's not telling the truth, and he knows he's not telling the truth. What difference does it make? So there are no advisors. I couldn't go to him and say, oh, you have to give your right name. We had another lady who would come. She was still drinking. God love her. She just celebrated 14 years, but when she was first getting sober, she'd come in 1 week and pick up a 6-month chip, and then a couple weeks later, she'd come back and pick up a 5-year chip, and then we just never knew. But it's like, give her a chip. That's what she says she is. Then okay. I have a woman that I'm working with who, God love her, she's having a hard time getting sober. And I've had several people say, you need to call her out on that. You need to talk to her. I said, well, when I talked to her, she said she's sober. What else can I say? She said she is sober. Now, it's pretty obvious to me and pretty much everybody else that she wasn't sober. But he finally caught up with her. And she picked up a white chip. Now she's almost at a month again. So we'll see what happens. But it's not my place to go and as her sponsor, I can say, now, if you've started drinking again, the whole idea is to go and, talk about that with the group, or pick up another white chip, or start over, or do something, but don't lie about drinking. No, I'm not lying. Okay. Well, so then, yeah, she was lying. But she's 3 weeks sober now. So, okay, we started over. We would also, as alcoholics, if anybody had this absolute authority, it talks about that on page 17, sort of about 2/3 of the way down. We began to wonder how much absolute authority over money and people any one of us drunks could handle. If we start being allowed to be advisors, if we start being allowed to have control over other people, I know me. To thine own self be true. It's going to go to my head. Sure as I'm sitting here. And I'm going to think that I actually know what I'm talking about. So we can't have that absolute authority. And that's why everybody's equal on all of this stuff. We just are members of Alcoholics Anonymous. In the pamphlet on the concepts, it identifies concept 3, 4, 5, 9, and 12 as the ones having significant spiritual significance. This being 4, yes, it does. On page 19, this just gives me chills every time I read it. There is another good reason for participation, and this one has to do with our spiritual needs. All of us deeply desire to belong, just to belong. So we should never regard any member of Alcoholics Anonymous as second class. Even if somebody has a relapse, even if they're lying about their sobriety, when it comes to a business meeting, when it comes to having discussion as members of Alcoholics Anonymous, they're still on an equal level playing field with you and me, as far as whether or not they can participate in the discussion. And that is one of the reasons that AA survives when other organizations fail, because we all get to participate and because we all get to belong, just simply belong. And that's really all I have prepared to say about concept 4, but I will welcome any comments or questions.
Thank you, Michaelene. Everybody's allowed to unmute and say thank you.
Thank you, Michaelene.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Michaelene.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michaelene.
All right.
Thanks, Michaelene.
So we'll
Thank you,
just,
Michaelene.
we'll just
You're
take
all
a,
welcome. You're all welcome.
we'll just take a short little break here. We'll do a little bit of business. You guys think of some questions now, send them into the user questions. And we've got a lot of experience in Michaelene. We can interview her, but we'll give her a break for a moment and we'll do a little housekeeping here. I've posted some links in the chat with regard to the 7th tradition. The 7th tradition states that every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. And the links that you'll find there for District 14, Tidewater Intergroup, aavirginia.org, and aa.org. Do with them as you see fit. Are there any announcements for the good of AA? Ebony usually announces the concepts workshop. What you got, Ebony?
Hey, y'all, I'm an alcoholic. My name is Ebony. I was waiting to see if our corrections for intergroup chair would make it. But I'll make it. Tidewater Intergroup Corrections Committee is looking for women who are willing to participate in the Tuesday Women's Norfolk Jail meeting that's hosted on Zoom. We are looking for people who, with a year or more of sobriety, who are willing to either speak, just come participate, show up. There are a lot of women in the Norfolk jail who are looking for a solution. You can just show up. You don't even have to turn the camera on. Take that responsibility statement seriously. And Lisa just put the info in the chat. If you are interested, please reach out to corrections@tidewaterintergroup.org, or you can text the phone number and they will reach out to you with the Zoom info. And that meeting is held on Tuesdays. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Sorry, I thought I had my camera on. I did have my hand raised.
Go ahead. Were you just going to ditto, Ebony?
Yes, ditto, Ebony.
Right on. I'll share my screen really quickly. The Simple Actions Group, this is on the tidewaterintergroup.org website, your one-stop shop for everything that's wonderful. But my home group, Simple Actions, we're really excited about this little workshop coming up on June 2nd, the family afterward. We've got Polly P. I think she's like 40, 50 years sober. And her son, James L., 20, 30 years sober. They do a mother-son presentation on the family afterward. So that's going to be on June 2nd. You can find all the Zoom information there at tidewaterintergroup.org. All are welcome.
I
Anybody
have
else?
one announcement.
Please.
If I can make it without my dog barking, on June 6th, the first Sunday in June, obviously, the Serenity Circle group in Virginia Beach is hosting a 4-step workshop. We meet outside. BYOB, bring your own big book, 12 and 12, paper and pen, get it done, pass the word. 11:30 to 1:30, Lynn Baptist Church.
Awesome. Are you guys going to put that on the intergroup website?
It should be going out the first Tuesday of May.
Perfect. Thank you. That
You're
sounds
welcome.
like fun.
Thank you. Yes, 4-step. Whee!
All right. Any other announcements? All right. Just again, there's time for questions, and we're going to tune back in. We've got some questions coming in. Michaelene, would you like to share a little bit about your experience as the Virginia delegate actually going to New York and participating in the General Service Conference?
Sure. Well, I was the delegate for Virginia in 1997 and 98. The thing that people don't really grasp about being delegate is that out of all the people in all of Virginia who have ever come to Alcoholics Anonymous, I was the 47th person to be asked to serve as the representative of Virginia. And that just blew my mind when that information sunk in. So we fielded, now the trustees get a lot of the questions and the thoughts and ideas that we have ahead of time, and working with the delegates kind of narrow it down to a workable amount of information. I know one of the literature, Sherry's serving on the literature committee. They were talking about whether or not to have a companion book to the big book, or whether we should do a 5th edition of the big book as it is, that kind of thing. I served on the Grapevine committee, and I was one of the first years that had 2 committees. I also served on international conventions. So you meet in your committees, you do the work, and if you've ever been to a Virginia area assembly, we are structured so closely to the conference. we hammer out a lot of the details in committee, and whatever we're bringing to the business floor is considered a motion that already has a second. And then we start the discussion all over again. Along the lines of the right of participation, one of my heroes was Jim Estelle, and he was the general manager for Alcoholics Anonymous when I was there. Besides the fact that he and I were both, I mean, I so appreciate the fact that Bill Wilson wrote as much as he did, because if it was left up to Bob, we would have been lost in the weeds long ago. But really and truly, Dr. Bob is my hero, because he didn't do a lot of the getting out there and talking and doing all the public speaking that Bill did. He just worked in the trenches, and he worked with a lot of drunks. And so Jim and I shared that feeling, which I had respected him before that. But then when we were on the business floor, he was chairing the meeting for the whole general service conference. And when he had something he needed to say, he got someone else to take his place, and he stepped down off the stage and got in line with everybody else to wait for his turn to speak as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And my respect for him just went through the roof. A lot of times we say that our officers should not participate. That's not exactly true. They are allowed to participate as members of Alcoholics Anonymous. What we discourage is using a position to try to be one of these, there's no advisors and no superiors, to use the weight of that position to influence people. That's what we try to avoid. And watching the general manager step down off the stage and become just a member of Alcoholics Anonymous so that he could speak was just one of the highlights of my experience in New York.
Thank you. The next question that we have submitted is, we have a home group member that is an alt GSR, but stopped coming to our business meetings, still attends home group meetings. Any experience how to handle that situation? Let me see.
If they're still coming to business meetings, what's the problem?
They stop coming, the alt GSR stop coming to business meetings, but still comes to the home group meeting.
Oh, I see. Okay. So a non-participating officer, pretty much. So what I was taught, and the way that we generally handle that in my district, is that we, in that case, it would be the GSR and maybe the secretary or one of the other long timers of the home group, maybe sit down and talk with the alternate GSR and say, hey, do you want to surrender the position? Do you think that you're just not interested in holding it? Because if not, and you resign, then we can go ahead and get someone else. Sometimes people won't resign. Sometimes people think those titles, I don't know, come with a bigger paycheck or something. I'm still waiting for my bigger paycheck. It hadn't happened yet. But they don't want to resign. And if the person is not a participating member of the home group, generally a group has some sort of guideline for itself. Each group is autonomous. So you can say, if they miss 3 meetings, if they miss 6 business meetings I'm talking about, then they're automatically out and you replace them. My home group, I believe it's 3. And if somebody's not willing to participate and they don't want to resign, then eventually we rotate them anyway. Rotation solves a lot of problems.
In the example that you just used, are you saying that if someone holds a position and then they don't go to 3 business meetings, then they have in effect resigned that position?
In my home group, that is true.
They're not kicked out of the home group. They've just
No.
resigned the position.
Right.
I see.
Exactly. We offer them the opportunity to resign the position. But, if it's still, if they say, no, I'm not going to resign, I'm going to come back, and then you go another couple business meetings and they're still not coming, it's time to replace them.
Okay. I have another question. I thought only delegates voted at conference, but it sounded like a member could go to conference and vote. Did I misunderstand that?
Yes, you did. Conference, conference is a closed meeting by invitation only. So there are only delegates, trustees, and some staff members. Even if I wanted to go and just visit the conference, I would have to get special permission. When I went to conference, we had I guess the general manager of the General Service Office of Yugoslavia. She showed up and wanted to attend conference, and we asked her to leave the room. Now, she had flown all the way from Yugoslavia to come to our conference. We asked her to leave the room, and we voted whether or not she was allowed to stay. A regular member of Alcoholics Anonymous may not attend. It is closed. A regular member of Alcoholics Anonymous may attend anything that we have in Virginia. The assembly, the planning sessions, the spring and summer meetings, or winter and summer meetings, you can come and participate in the discussion part, but not vote unless you're representing a group.
Okay, so we have the conference, which is delegates and trustees. That's it. And that's once a year in New York
For a week.
for a week. And then at the state level, we've got assemblies, spring and fall, and summer and winter meetings. And AA members are allowed to participate in the discussion, attend, witness. Even if they can't vote, they can be heard.
Yes.
Okay. I hope that answered your question.
When I am a guest somewhere, let's say I came to your home group meeting, if I wanted to participate in the discussion, what I do, I think, is a courtesy to the group, is I introduce myself as a non-voting guest of the meeting. And so if I were attending an assembly as a non-voting member, I would state that from the microphone, just say, my name's Michaelene, I'm an alcoholic, I'm here as a non-voting guest. I'm a past delegate, I don't get a vote. So there you go. At the assembly, I don't.
Okay. A group inventory was mentioned a few times. What is that?
Well, now, I'm glad you asked. A group inventory, if you have the AA group pamphlet, it is in there. There's 13 or 14 questions. Groups will sometimes find themselves floundering a little bit, maybe not sure what direction to go, and they'll decide to do an inventory. The inventory that we did recently was for Christy Ellis's home group, called Awakenings, a Sunday morning group in Richmond. They're a very healthy, very functional group. They decided to take an inventory because it had been a long time, and they have some tweaking to do, but there were no major problems. When my now deceased ex-husband and I were both home group members at the same place, and we had decided to get divorced. All of a sudden we were having these problems in our home group that we just had never had before. And so we decided to do an inventory. It's customary to get someone from outside the home group or outside even the district to come and do an inventory, or help facilitate the inventory. And what we found out with my home group inventory was that people were taking sides. And we had never asked anybody to take sides. It's just like, it just floated to the top as we kept answering questions. And finally, it's like, oh, wait, I see what's going on. No, don't do that. We're united in the fact of this being a home group and it needs to function. We're not asking any of you to choose sides. And we resolve the problems in my home group. I've done inventories with other groups where they didn't even know they were having problems, but through the discussion, the questions, and just through the discussion, find out, oh, wait a minute, hey, we need to work on that.
When you say the questions, are you referring to the questions in the pamphlet, the AA home group? There's like 11 of them. And some people, do you go when you lead people through the inventory? Do you do a traditions checklist or anything like that? How do you?
Yeah, I have that on just a sheet of paper. It's the same questions. And what I did with Christy's group, she wanted them ahead of time. And so I emailed them to her and she emailed them to everybody else. And they had some of their answers already written out or suggestions written out before we even started the inventory. So when we got to that question, they already had some of the stuff that they wanted to say.
Michaelene, do you think it's worth making the distinction here when we're talking about the right of participation that we're not necessarily talking about an AA meeting? We're talking about a service type environment, like a business meeting or an assembly. I guess I'm imagining walking into a speaker meeting and I'm not the speaker going, I demand to participate.
You can participate in listening. Yes, these concepts primarily refer to business type meetings. And if your home group is not having business meetings, they should. Because there's always stuff to talk about, setting up stuff like this concept study. What are we going to do with our money? When are we going to go back to the church? Or are we going to continue Zooming, or are we going to go hybrid? Those are things that we need to address. What are we doing to attract diversity into our home group? What are we doing to attract young people? What are we doing to keep our old timers? This is a pet peeve of mine. I'm going to throw it out here.
Do it.
The people that say anybody who picks up a white chip, they're the most important person in the room. This concept that we're talking about tonight says that's not true. That is not true. And I tell you what, if all you've got is a room full of new people who are brand new, fresh, sober, you're going to see some bloodshed. We've got to have the balance of the old timers and the new people. That's where we get the balance. The old timers have the experience, the wisdom. The new people have the new ideas and the hard questions that make everybody think just a little bit deeper so that we can be the best for AA that we can be. I'm off my soapbox now.
And to be healthy, we need everybody's voice, right?
Exactly.
So the next question is, can a member give dissenting opinions during, well, it says during vote sessions? I guess can a non-voting member give a minority opinion?
Well, a non-voting member, yes, if they're participating in the discussion. Let's say I'm visiting your home group and you're talking about the sailboat thing. And I come in and I say, well, I'm a non-voting guest, but I would like to share my experience with you. And I tell you about visiting in Arizona, where there was lots of desert and sand, and they didn't really have a need for sailboats. I can do that as a non-voting guest. But when your group decides to vote on whether or not each group should have sailboats, I don't vote. Only home group members vote in a home group. See, here's the real thing. We alcoholics, and I've heard people say they were going to do this, only home group members get to vote in your home group. Because otherwise, now, nobody here in this august group would ever think of such a thing. But we could gather a group of our friends and go to another group and just take over. Because that's how we roll. And when you got some people that are not practicing humility and they think that they know everything and they know how to do AA right and you don't, well, we get these ideas sometimes. So only home group members can vote in your home group. That's it.
I saw that very thing happen one time.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there was a small coup in my district for a little while, of people that guys, it was guys. They had a leader who does not practice this. He doesn't read out of the same big book that I read out of. And they just decided that they knew more about what AA was about, and they were going as a group to different and trying to tell these different groups how to run the meetings. Well, guess what? Your group is autonomous. Even if you do an inventory, whoever's helping you facilitate the inventory does not get the right to tell you how to run your meeting. Joe Sullivan, long gone to the great meeting in the sky, another past delegate, used to say, if you want to start your meeting with the bunny hop and end it with the Star Spangled Banner, you can do that because you're autonomous. I don't recommend it. P.S.
I'm going to offer, I've got one more question, so I'm going to offer last call on questions. Don't leave here with a burning desire. So someone wants to know, Michaelene, how do we choose a delegate in Virginia? And is it the same everywhere?
No, it's not the same everywhere. There are some of the areas that do not have, they don't allow their DCMs or their officers to vote, only GSRs. And some of them, once you get into the rotation, that's it. You just go through the rotation. There are some areas, Kentucky is one, and I know there's at least another one in the Southeast region. After a person serves as delegate, then they automatically rotate into the chairman's position, because they figure that after serving as delegate, they're ready to chair an assembly. Well, gracious sakes. I think chairing the assembly was one of the things that helped prepare me to be a delegate. One of my earliest assemblies as chairman, we had the discussion of whether we wanted the meeting minutes transcribed word for word, or if we just wanted minutes. And let me tell you, phew, that was exhausting. But then when I got to conference, we were talking about what changes needed to be made to the book Living Sober. Would you believe we talked about that book Living Sober for 7 hours? It doesn't take that long to read the whole damn book. So you just never know. We swallow the camel and choke on the gnat. So the way that we do it in Virginia is the only real requirement that we have is that someone must have served as a DCM. If you've got your eye on the delegate position, you got to serve as DCM first. And usually we pick our delegate from someone who has had several years of experience in the Virginia area, serving in a variety of positions. When I became delegate, the previous 3 or 4 delegates had been elected straight from the chairman's position. So Joe Sullivan, Susan Campbell, Bob Hickey, they had all been, well, Bob, no, I think he was the alternate delegate. Who was before Joe? Maybe Mary Ann. They were chairman of the Virginia area and completely skipped alternate delegate and went straight to the delegate's position. We poll everybody who's eligible. So that would be all the officers and all the DCMs. You can say yay or nay. I had the opportunity to say yay, I said nay. And I did say yay to the alternate delegate position because I just felt like was the right thing to do. And it was, because that was the position where I got asked to do lots and lots and lots of workshops. And I knew the whole deal was that I was kind of being interviewed around the Virginia area to see whether or not I would be a good delegate. So, but we poll everybody, all the DCMs from every district, and then we accept nominations from the floor. Chances are, if you get nominated from the floor, you haven't really done much in the Virginia area, you're not going to get elected. We prefer to have somebody who has had some experience in knowing how to herd cats and answer questions and knows a little bit about the concepts. And so the last several years, now this last election was a little bit of a shakeup because John Pine was the secretary. Was he the secretary? I think. Yeah, and he skipped chairman and went to alternate delegate. So it's not automatic that once you're in an officer position, you just automatically rotate through the positions. That is not automatic at all. And then we vote by secret ballot, which became a lot easier on Zoom. I kind of think we ought to keep that part. It went really fast because when we do it in person, we've got a panel of people who are sitting there counting all those little pieces of paper. But with Zoom and being able to vote, bam, we had an answer right away. So I don't know if we're going to keep that part, but it was infinitely quicker.
Does each state have one delegate? I mean, are the areas generally divided up by states? I know Canada doesn't call themselves states, but
Right,
Um,
their territories have delegates. There are a couple of states, and I think Utah, I believe Utah has 2 delegates, because geographically, one person can't just, there's that mountain range in the middle there, and one person just can't get back and forth. So they have 2. California is just so humongous. They have more than one. I know they have at least 2, maybe 3. So, but here in the Southeast region, we all each have 1. So we're all the southern states, plus Puerto Rico, and Virginia, believe it or not, includes Cuba. And the reason we include Cuba is because the port of entry is in Norfolk.
Yeah, I think Guantanamo Bay is a member of the Tidewater Intergroup.
Mhm. Yeah,
All right. Why is the New York conference a closed meeting?
because it is. Because it is.
So we just to get a feel for that, we've got what, 93 areas and then or 94, something like that.
93, 94, yeah.
And then we've got the trustees and the staff. So we've got well over 100 voting members at the General Service Conference, right?
Yeah, I think it was like 123 total. The trustees can't sway the vote, and the staff members, there's no way they can swing a vote. But that goes back to concept 2, where we have a vast number of people and we can't all be there, so we elect someone to represent us. And if we've elected someone to represent Virginia, which right now is Sherry Wells, then that's who we send. We don't get to send extra people.
Okay. Someone wants to know, how has being involved in service affected your sobriety?
Oh my God. It, well, when I was drinking, I was a girl who could not say no. And I worked a lot on the barter system. So one of the main things that that AA has done for me, it took my very worst defect and turned it into an asset. Because although I have had to say no to AA on occasion, most of the time I do not. So I get to say yes for the right reasons. And I'm not sure if I had not been involved in service that I would have stuck around as long as I did. I had it in my mind when I first got sober that I was going to give this about 6 months. I figured that was long enough to learn everything about AA and I'd be done. But then I was about 6 months sober when I became a GSR. And then I had this responsibility, and my home group was dependent on me, and the district was dependent on me. And so I couldn't let them down. And it did keep me sober. It's just been a delight to my sobriety. I have had more just blessings and opportunities than anybody deserves.
Thank you. And finally, we have a question. How does the conference keep things moving when there is a large agenda? Does the chair have the ability to cut debate on an issue at some point?
Yes. They have the right to call the question just like we can in the assembly. Now, we should never rush a discussion in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what we did when we were drinking. We made rash decisions. We didn't investigate everything first. We just rushed into making decisions, and very often they were bad decisions. So we have to look at it from every angle that we can think of to look at it before we actually take it to a vote. It is not good to call the question too soon, but that is an option that is available. Like I said, we talked about living sober for 7 hours. No, we didn't have a slam jam crammed agenda like they had this year. Some of the stuff from last year, it was our first experience with a Zoom conference. We kind of didn't know what we were doing. We didn't really know how much time we needed. Some of the stuff from last year got tabled till this year, which was why they had so much extra stuff. I don't know if they tabled anything from this year to next year. I haven't gotten a report yet. Because Sherry was Zooming, we were doing a concept study with her, some of the other past delegates and myself, and we call it concepts and foolery. But we had skipped last week because she was online until 2:15 in the morning and she was exhausted. So we skipped, and I haven't gotten all the updates yet. I'm not sure what got tabled until next year, but we have that option.
Well, thank you. We are about at the end of our time. Michaelene, you've been very generous. Everybody will get the opportunity to thank her after we close. I'd like to thank everybody for coming and participating tonight. This has been a joy, and we'll do it again next month on Concept 5. And so everybody has the ability to unmute, and I would suggest that we close with the responsibility of statement. Feel free to unmute. Who's responsible?
I
I am
am
responsible when anyone,
Anyone,
anywhere reaches out for help. I want the hand of AA always to be there. And for that, I am responsible.
Good.
All right.
Thank you.
Michaelene.
Thanks, Michaelene. Good to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Great.